Before we begin, we're going to cover off on a couple of things you need to keep in mind when progressing through this masterclass. If you have any previous injuries or conditions that are going to limit your range of motion, you need to make sure you go and get those sorted, or you go back to the Unlocking Your Movement masterclasses we've provided in order to make sure you tick all the boxes before we head into the more advanced versions. A lot of these masterclasses are going to take extra wrist, shoulder, thoracic, hip mobility, and also shoulder stability. So be sure you tick the boxes and drop back if you've had any injuries or you feel like you're not quite at the level. I'll provide a few extra tips and tricks as we progress through the masterclass, but at any stage, if you feel like you're not quite there, drop back because we want to avoid injury. The next element, it's practice. When we're looking at these advanced bodyweight moves, we want to be making sure we only hit the required sets and the required reps, which have been provided or will be provided before you progress to the next stage. And I want you to use a term or a practice called greasing the groove. When you're practicing these movements, don't do them in excess. The idea is to do them when you're feeling rested and you're feeling like you can tackle a small amount bit by bit and progress over the long term. Adding excessive load or volume into your training with these advanced moves too early could result in injury. So pick 2 levels, stick with those for a day. If you hit the required level on the sets and reps, progress the next day. Don't advance any more than 2 levels at any one training session. So steady as she goes. Take time to progress through the movements. Make sure you hit the sets and reps before you advance any further. The single arm push-up or one arm push-up. Pretty useful bodyweight strength exercise we can do once we have mastered push-ups and we want to advance to more difficult activities. Now, this whole journey in teaching you the one arm push-up, I'm going to start from the bare basics. So if you haven't achieved your first push-up before, this could still be pretty useful for you to learn the basics to master them. So the first thing we need to think of is any potential shoulder injuries or any history with shoulder issues. Our trunk stability needs to be sorted as well. So if we've got any of those issues, we want to regress to our Unlocking Your Movement masterclasses to address those before we move into these more advanced variants. Before I forget it, wrists is something we need to consider too, so making sure you are doing your wrist mobility drills. First step, 2 sets, 20 reps, elevated push-ups. Now remembering our grease the groove principle, we only work as many reps as we can maintain perfect form. If we don't make the sets, we don't progress to the next level, and we simply come back the next time we practice and start there. So it's a journey, it's not about racing. So elevated push-ups, we can be on a surface higher if we need to, so it's dependent on your level. You can start as high as here if we need to, but with our elevated push-up, we want to make sure hands are on the bench and our chest comes to the bench at every rep. We should be full range the entirety of the movement. We shouldn't be only coming down partial ways, should be chest to bench, driving up. Now, our hand position. Hands just outside, shoulder width apart. If you do this yourself, you will find your natural push-up stance or hand position. So you can see there now my shoulders are pinched. So you're sucking your chest to the bench and driving into that end range position. If you can't achieve this end range position, we need to drop back, deal with the mobility or stability issues at present, and then come back to the elevated push-up. Next up, step 2 is our full push-up. And we're going to keep the same principle in play here, which is chest to floor. We want to make sure we're getting to full range, and we're doing 2 by 20 reps, 2 sets, 20 reps before we move on. Now this might be a bit of a mission for some of you if you've only just started your journey, but that's the idea of it. We need to earn it before we go to another level. Now on the floor, we want to push into our heels to get that posterior chain activation. If we're sort of sloppy in the midsection, we're going to have all sorts of dipping and issues like that. So pushing through the heels, hands in that position that we've already discovered for our ideal push-up from the previous level. Chest to floor, sucking that chest to the floor, driving back up to the top position. And it should be a nice controlled tempo like that. It's not about speed. It's not about how fast you can do it. It's all about slow controlled range, under motion, full range, chest to floor, progress from elevated down to the floor as you need to make sure you keep that trunk stability in place and that shoulder range on point. So we've mastered step 2, which is 2 by 20 reps of our full push-up. Now it's time to start manipulating that hand position to get used to bearing weight on that single arm. And that's our diamond push-up. That's going to help us bring our hands in and work those different positions of the arms and the shoulders as well to allow us to get into that one arm push-up position when we're ready to progress. So diamond position on the floor, 2 by 15 reps. So maintaining that nice straight line, pushing through the heels to maintain that trunk stability and that posterior chain activation. We are keeping those elbows beside the body, chest to floor, raising up. Now you might notice your hands feel like they're coming under your chest a little bit further down your body. That's pretty normal. So we want to be in a position we can keep those elbows beside the body and driving up into one unit. So 2 sets, 15 reps, and then we're progressing on to step 4. Step 4 in achieving your one arm push-up. It's time to load single sides a little bit differently now, and that's going to be used through our uneven push-up. So we're going to go for 2 sets of 15 reps. The hand on the ball is the driving hand because we need to be able to get to that depth to drive out the bottom of our one arm push-up. So let's take a look. Our setup starts as simple as our normal push-up position like we always start. But we've got this hand up on the ball. Now the trick is we want to suck that chest to the floor, but we're going to drive through that hand on the ball. Bit of an unstable surface also helps for a bit of shoulder stability training, and we're driving out using that hand on the ball as much as we can. So if we can feel our weight shifting onto the downside on the floor, we want to shift our weight back onto the ball, get to a position where we're driving out predominantly using this side. That uneven position is going to help when you need to rotate out of the bottom of the one arm push-up. So 2 sets of 15 on our uneven push-up. Stage 5, or step 5, is our lever push-up. So we can still use that ball we've got here. And now it's about extending that stability by letting the ball go out to the side, and that driving arm that's fixed to the floor is the one that's doing the work. So this is where your feet might need to come a little bit wider to support your stance, which we need to do in our one arm push-up anyway. So we need to set up in a position where we've got this foot behind this hand. So the hand that's on the ground, the foot needs to be in line with it directly behind, and the other foot can come out a little bit wider where you feel stable. Now, really quick rule of thumb here, if you need a bit more stability, get your foot out a little bit wider. But once you've found your position, the ball comes on the hand and we are lowering down and driving out. So we simply use this ball to roll out with our hand. You can use anything else that works in the same manner. Once we get to that bottom position, working full range, we drive out. And that's our lever push-up, 2 sets, 10 reps, ball or similar, to make sure we're extending that stability and making us work off that single arm, progressing to that one arm push-up. Stage 6, one arm push-up. It's time to start putting together that one arm technique. This time we're bringing the bench back or the elevated surface. Now remember, earn the depth by starting high enough that you can achieve the rep and then drop the depth as you go. So don't progress too quickly, otherwise we're just simply not going to get there. So let's look at some setup tips to get us to an elevated one arm push-up. Now, it's going to be a little bit different on the floor because we have to shift our weight a little bit, but we want to essentially keep the hand that's driving in line with that foot as well, and then this leg comes out to counterbalance as we need. And then as we lower, we are going to rotate away from that downed arm to be able to drive back up. That's called corkscrewing. We're going to corkscrew out of the position, into the position, and corkscrew out of the position as well. So if that chest wants to go away from the elbow and the hand, that's perfectly normal. That's why we stabilize with this leg out on the side, so we've got the balance. And then as we get more and more confident, we bring it into a point where we improve our pistol over time. Okay, so we're pushing into the edge of that bench. We've got our feet in a position that you can manage that confidently. Got our hand behind our back, and we're sucking the chest to the bench and driving back out. If you get into a bit of a weird position, you can sort of fix it up as you go, and you're driving out. So fixing, other side, and driving out of position like so. So we're aiming for 5 sets, 5 reps, working the depth down as we go. So start high so you can hit your 5 by 5. Going down, you might want to do less sets or less reps to manage it, but we're working from as high as we need to get correct technique all the way to the floor. Step 7, it's time to give that full one arm push-up a crack. Now remembering our setup tips of hand in line with the foot on the downside and grabbing that stability with the opposite leg as required, and that chest is naturally going to rotate away from that body a little bit, and then corkscrewing in and corkscrewing out of position. Okay, so we've worked our elevated. We should be down to a level above, just off the floor before we go to the full floor version, and then we're going for a single rep each side to see how it all looks put together. So working on your setup position, don't rush, take your time. Now the other side, switching legs. And there we have it, guys. The one arm push-up, working from elevated to down. If it's a bit sticky in there, grease the groove, work a few reps, rest, take your time, and improve it over time, little bit by little bit, and you'll have the sweet one arm push-up in no time.